Yes,
Hey everybody, it's JB and we're here with Live Exceptional. We've got another amazing Empowercast for you. I've got one of my very closest friends, Judy Winslow. She is coming to us live from the USA. I know so many of my guests are like all over the planet. So today we've got somebody in America. She's going to tell us all about what's going on with her. Judy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So glad to be here and see you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to be all talking exceptional today. So I know that you're a pretty exceptional person. Judy is someone that I look up to. She has an amazing Facebook page. But so Judy, tell us, because I ask my guests every time at the beginning of the show, what's 3 things you've been doing the last 12 months that you would classify as exceptional?
3 things in the last 12 months. I have been, in no particular order.
Yeah.
Recalibrating my business existence, which is super fun. I love business. Greatly appreciating where I live and taking advantage of that, which for me is a big deal because, like JV, we have travelers-itis.
Exactly, travelers-itis.
Right? I live by the beach, and so, hey, get into it because you moved here for a reason. Yeah. And the third thing is, I think, just overall gratitude for all expressed through, I've been painting more.
Wow. So I love those 3 things because, so many times when I ask people, what are they doing exceptional? They have these big, huge, this list of like, a big tangible, material or a big, sort of status goal. And you just brought it home, girlfriend, about really making it about sort of self-honoring and what's most important to you. And I really appreciate that because a lot of people watching this, they aren't necessarily at that place in their life where they're obtaining big giant goals. For some people it's just hard to get out of the house, or it's hard to get out of bed, or it's hard to get that, answer that very first email or go out and get a business card. And so talk a little bit more about how you sort of, your 3 exceptional things are really about self and about, what's important to you as a person.
It's funny that you bring it up the way that you did, because I'm a really big proponent of 2 things. One is, and this is a result of having a very, very dark teenage childhood kind of space where I wanted to be like everyone else and I wanted to fit in and I felt so lacking. And as I've gone through my journey, I have really gotten that we design our own lives if we're able. Like, why wouldn't we? So why be like everyone else when you can have it your way? And I really believe that a life lived richly is a very personal definition, and that's part of what I work around with my clients, and it's part of what makes this world go round. Because we all have our unique gifts that we're bringing to the party, and to play as if we don't is a ripoff to everyone, most of all ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if, life is only exceptional when you've got a certain car in the garage, and it's only exceptional when you're a certain number on the scale, like how boring is that? And really,
I want those too. No, those are all good. I'm not dissing that.
Right. And you're right, because I love that you said dark, because I was like, where's she going with the word dark? But it's all so true, because we've all had that darkness. We've all been through that darkness, and someone may be going through that darkness right now. And the whole purpose for us having these Empowercasts is, if you're in the darkness, we're here to tell you that I've been in it. I was in it just not that many years ago, 5 years ago. Everyone we've talked to has been in it. And Judy, you just said you were in it in your teenage years. And so was there a moment, was there a crossroad where you said, okay, I'm taking this path and I'm making this decision and this is where I'm headed?
Yeah. So for me, now remember, I was, the big tide turning for me was when I was 28. I can tell you exactly when it happened, but and it doesn't happen, at least for me, it happened once when I was 28, but then it happened again because so at 28, I took my first personal development class, which really was life altering, because I didn't understand that I was choosing anything. I thought it was all happening to me, right? And I had this awareness that, no, you can choose. This is how it happened, honestly.
Tell
So
us. We want to know, because a lot of people are sort of anti self-help. My ex-husband, for example, was like, I hate that self-help stuff. I hate that Tony Robbins guy. That's all it called. That self-help stuff is baloney. And so there are people who are almost anti self-help because maybe they don't really understand it.
It's a bit of a cult of darkness as well, in my opinion. So there was actually a moment in this course when it was ending, and as I was in the course, it was sort of, there was a lot of that, like, oh, oh. But when it was ending, they had this opportunity. There were about 300 people in the room, and they said, listen, if you feel like you didn't get it, stand up, because we're going to go around the room and we're going to handle it, because we really want you to leave here like feeling like you got what you came for. So I stood up, and my friends that I had made through this event, who some of them I still know, believe it or not, this is 30 years later. They were like, sit down, sit down. What are you talking about? And I was like, no, I really don't think I got it. I have a question. And I'm very skeptical as a human. Can you imagine this? So luckily they started on the other side of the room. So this person would stand up and say, well, I really didn't get like how blah, blah, blah. And I would say, oh, I understand that. And I would sit down. And then the next person would talk and I would stand up. So I was like this weird yo-yo person, like standing up and sitting down. And all of a sudden, my friends were like, looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I had this odd epiphany. So here's the epiphany. You cannot stand up and sit down at the same time. Duh. Nor can you be happy and sad at the same time. Choose. And I was like, oh my God, I get to choose? And that was my first epiphany. So I started choosing and being really aware that, oh, I can choose happy or not happy. Okay, today I'm choosing happy. This moment I'm choosing happy. And I literally, back in the day, they did not have this language, but I started creating new neural pathways without the awareness that I was creating new neural pathways. And it has set me on a journey that's been somewhat incredible, honestly. And as you know, JB, I am now like the cheerleader of life. Woohoo!
Yeah.
And it really has been an amazing ride. But that was the first, like, oh, I can stand up or sit down. Which is it?
So powerful. I mean, it's really beautiful because, you really are so right. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to be angry. You can choose to be disappointed. You can choose to be excited. You can choose to be curious. You can choose to be frustrated. I mean, you're so right. And you can't necessarily have both of those. Like, you need to pick one. Pick one. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to make this work. Mm-hmm. Or pick the other one. I'm going to be miserable and I'm going to let this destroy my life.
And there are times, and after that, I did backslide, I won't lie, into, this is a few years later, literally standing, this is how I describe it, standing on the edge of a crater that I felt I was going to fall into that was really dark. Really, 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 really dark. Scary. Like, if I fell in there, I'm not coming out. And so what am I going to do? And so I chose to pull myself, my little tushy, back from the edge of darkness. And it was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes because I'm not going to be here again.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had those moments too. And I think most people who are living a spiritual life and living a life of, their bliss have that moment where they say, I'm never going to live like this again.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we want to encourage anybody watching this. If you're at that place where you just don't like your life, you're not happy, or something's just not working for you, it doesn't have to be all encompassing. We all have quadrants of our life, but if there's just something that isn't working for you, get to that place. You're absolutely right. I'm not going to live like this anymore.
And part of it is just, it's that awareness, right? So most humans, we don't go, it's part of how our cultures are set up, right? There's not any kind of push or pro-awareness kind of mentality. It's all about how to have the masses move as one, right? So there's a control part. So the people that break away from that and start to have kind of this ability to think for themselves, it opens up a new opportunity. That's where the joy is. That's where the richness is. And it's not about It's not about money. It can translate into money. It's not about the car, although I do love my BMW. You know, it's more than that. It's about this opportunity to live a life that you choose and you design and you enjoy.
And you know, let's just talk about that BMW for a second. I'm sure nobody just gave it to you. Like you had to work for it, you had to earn it, you have to conceptualize it, you have to make a decision about it, you had to make some sacrifices around it. You made a conscious choice, and in having that, you feel great about it because you got yourself to that place.
And it's why I'm such a big proponent. You know, I have a star client, one of my star clients who came to me in our very first meeting. I said, you know, like, what do you do every day? And he said, well, my wife tells me I spend too much time dreaming. And I said, really? Well, just so you know, if we work together, I'm actually going to ask you to dream more. Because if we don't use our imagination and dream big dreams, how can we create that? How can we make it real? That's where everything starts. So this notion that, you know, dreaming and imagining and all of this is that we learn by 6th grade US when you're about 11 is not cool, not encouraged, and not really the way is crazy talk. So
Yeah, tell me more about that, because like I'm a big dreamer. I label myself visionary. And you know, some people I meet and they say, well, you know, that's just too big for me, or I can't think that big, or even that word exceptional, it's just too much, it's too crazy, JB. And so how is it that you go from that point in your life where you realize I had this dream and everyone's telling me I can't do it, or it's not for me, or I'm scared crazy, and then you take that moment? What's that push that you had, or that step?
You know, I think it's different for everyone and also for the season of your life, right? Because my first business, I started when I was 30. I was living in New York City. I was working at Women's Day magazine, and I pitched my boss to go into business, and she thought I was crazy. She still runs that business all these years later. That was in the 80s. So, you know, I think at that time it was just like, oh, this is so doable. We can so do this. I could see it, right? Think about imagination. We started a business with $500, you know, and we brought in $500,000 the first year, which is sort of unusual now to think about, but we were just moving forward because it was fun and it seemed possible. So I think that's the distinction for dreamers, is dreamers see possibility, and where the fear comes in, at some point there's a tipping point where the possibility is more alluring than the fear.
Yeah, I really relate to that. Someone was saying to me just the other day, we were talking about cold calling, or, you know, calling people up and asking them for things. I just called you up and said, hey, will you be on my EmpowerCast? And you said yes, because I'm not ever afraid to make a cold call, because my belief system is that no matter who I call, they're going to say yes. Absolutely everyone is going to say yes. I feel like before I pick up the phone, I'm going to get a yes. And if I get, can I do it next week? Or that's, you know, that's not going to work for me right now. Or it's not a no forever. It's just, I always think there's a yes. And a lot of people have said to me, well, I just don't think that way. Like, I don't think it's possible. I don't think I'm going to get a yes right away. How can we shift that idea of where we've been trained, as you said, and maybe even taught not to dream? What did you tell him about when did he go back and tell his wife, like, I'm going to dream more?
You know, I don't think he ever told his wife anything, but boy, we sure have a good time making stuff up. And shortly thereafter, we came, you know, I planted the seed, maybe I opened the door, whatever, but he came up with a brilliant idea it will add millions to his bottom line. And he's been moving in that direction ever since, building team and creating it.
So do you think it was someone in believing with him? Do you think that you supporting him and you believing in him at the same time was an addition to, was some momentum and some fuel for that?
Yeah. I mean, look, it doesn't hurt, right? When you come up with an idea and you share it with someone, I mean, you've done it and people go, wow, that's awesome. And I will say that I'm working on a project now. And I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten more, I think there's a part of me I'm not that person like you that was just like, oh, I'll pick up the phone and I'll call the president. Of course he'll talk to me. Even though I'm finding that, oddly enough, you know, like most people want to help. They really do. they've worked hard. They know what it's like to work hard. There's empathy in the world, and we forget that. But I think that there is a place and a part of your life, depending on your phase. Where I was when I was 30 was very different than where I am now, in terms of considerations and what looks doable and how to create it. And I'd like to think that my experiences have actually made that more possible and given me a better platform and groundwork, right, to come from. But there's still days where I'm just like, what was I thinking? I'm not doing that today. And I can do that.
I agree. I agree. I think one thing I've really learned is like you can't be a 10 all the time. You can't just be on, going, on. Like there has to be an ebb and flow. There has to be the high and the low. There has to be some time to regroup or think, or, as I'll say, like go in your little shell. And, I think sometimes we get hard on ourselves because, we're not up all the time.
Yes, but the other part of that is once you're familiar, and I see this, you must too, but certainly with the people I work with, is how do we start to honor? And it's a thing I don't think we're taught that when we're young. How do you honor who you are, your own rhythms, when you're hot, when you're not? What are your strengths? And I mean, everyone I work with, including from kids to 80, I have people do all of these like cool assessments to say, okay, this is my belief, these are my values, these are my strengths. Usually when we're freaked out, we're working on our weaknesses instead of having somebody else do that who it's their strength. Like we're taught, we're somehow, especially women, everything. I am like this. I'm supposed to be independent. I'm supposed to do everything myself, right? That's freedom, but that's such a lie. Like life is a team sport. So who can you have on your team that will empower you, that will support you, that will cheer you on, and that, will say, you know what, you have a crappy day, go to the beach, do it, tomorrow's another day.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as women, more ever than before, in this day and age, we're being asked to do so much. We're asked to be single moms or moms and business owners and breadwinners, and soccer moms and, like perfect bodies, perfect health, perfect humanitarians, perfect things come out of our mouths. And it really is so hard, to be honest. Never before have women been expected to carry all of those roles. And yet, you're right, we're expected to do it by ourselves or be completely independent when we really do need a team. We need support. We need people to help us. And so often when people are not living their exceptional life, they withdraw from their friends and from the people who support them. Is there something you could give us, a little exercise that we could, one thing if our viewers could do today or after our Powercast, they could try it out? Is there any little exercise you have for us, suggestion?
Just for like an empowerment kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, I will share something that I do with in workshops that's super fun, and I actually give my clients this homework. There's two things. One is this is what's coming to mind. It's super easy, and that is to identify 3 people that you admire and list out why you admire them, right? So oftentimes we can't see what's our own fabulosity, but when you think about who you admire and why, I would say that 9 out of 10 times it's because you either have the same traits or you're developing those traits. So, but we don't think about that for ourselves. But when we think outside of ourselves, it's easy to see.
So other people are like a mirror to you. So if you admire somebody, there's something about them that you feel there's a mirror, there's a resonance with.
Right. So let's say people say, this is not abnormal, right? So right now, Oprah would be big, but people will say things like, oh, I admire, Buckminster Fuller because he was so imaginative and he was so creative, and, Oprah because she speaks her mind. But I may say things about Oprah that you may not say, right? Because we're seeing different qualities in these people. And even if it was all the same, I describe it as it's sort of like you're going to make a great meal. So in the US, I don't know if they have it there, there's a show called Chopped, and you open a picnic basket, and in that are ingredients. But if we were to make with the same ingredients, let's say their kindness, integrity, curiosity, and humor, let's say we had those. The meal that you would make and the meal that I would make would be very different, right? We all have our own recipe for our success. And we don't acknowledge it, embrace it, or leverage it.
Yeah, and it's beautiful what you said, because, success isn't always about intellect. And so many people think that they don't have the smarts or the wisdom or the brain power to be successful, when what you just said were some of the most important ingredients: compassion, understanding, curiosity, admiration, inspiration. Those things drive success so much more than just brain IQ.
So those items are not right. So we think about money, but money isn't success. That what we mentioned are the seeds of success. That's what we're watering our plants with, so that they can grow up and turn into a money tree, for instance. But they're not the actual, right? Money's paper. Where does paper come from? It's a tree. So how are you what seeds do you have? And then how do you water them? That's where success actually is created and lives.
Beautiful. And so I'm a big visual person. So the analogy of like Jack and the Beanstalk, he's got his magic seeds. Everyone's seeds are unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
So what's my power and my talent and my uniqueness is my unique seed. And if I plant that seed and I water that seed and I tend to that seed, my harvest will be completely different than yours, but it'll still be a harvest.
Yes. But the difference is that life moves so quickly, and we are so distracted about what's important that usually we're not, and neither are our children, and neither were we really directed to look inside to see, oh, what do I already possess? It's all right. Our world is so external. Well, if I just have this doll, if I just have this app, if I just have this phone, blah, 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 that's not actually the truth, right? Yeah, it's fascinating. I just came from a marketing conversation in this group that I'm in, and we were talking about why do people think that they can have whatever they want now? It's all marketing, right? Why would you get things you can't afford? Because we've been told we can. And so there's this weird dissection of people that just believe what we are told. And it started, think about it. The churches did that. Religion does that. Like, if you think about we don't take it apart though, right? And then there's this whole other sector that we're like, wait a minute, I'm not really sure about that, right? We're curious and we're skeptical and we're cynical and we investigate, and there's really something to be said for that. And that's what I believe we want to cultivate and promote for each other, because the world shows up very differently when we do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to segue right into that, because, planting seeds for yourself is one thing, but also watering and tending to seeds in other people is really important. My kids, when I go to bed at night with them and I cuddle with them, I actually tell them the qualities about them that I admire and that I appreciate. And I'm like watering and nurturing those seeds, because I love their talent and I love my son's compassion and I love my daughter's curiosity. And so I feed those seeds with encouragement. So those are the seeds that grow, instead of telling them what they didn't do or what they're lacking or what they're missing. And in my new relationship, I'm the same. I'll go to bed at night and I'll tell my partner like the things that he did that I just want to keep, I want more of that, and I want to enjoy that, and I want that to grow. And so just keep adding to those seeds. And so for those of you watching, you can water and tend and grow seeds in other people by encouraging them and inspiring them, and do the same for yourself. I love it. What a great idea. Okay, what's your second one?
My second one is, I call it the power of two. And again, it's very simple. So I do this a lot in business. And what you do is you ask 2 friends, 2 colleagues, 2 vendors, and 2 clients to give you 3 items that they admire in you. Usually language that either we don't use or things that we don't see about ourselves. Our self-perception is very different than how others perceive us, right? And it's very interesting. And I actually ask people to do that in writing, because when people tell us about ourselves or tell us anything, we may hear something that they did not say. But when it's in writing, it's pretty indisputable.
I totally agree. So Judy and I met at this amazing conference called AFES, and AFES has these little things called sugar cubes where you write a little note and you put it in an envelope, and at the end of the conference you take your envelope and you're not allowed to read it till you're headed home on the plane. And one year when I was headed home, I opened up my envelope with sugar cubes, and of like the multitude that I received, the vast majority of them said, "You're such a bright light," or "You have so much light," or "You have so much spirit," or "You're so bright," or "You're so," and I realized, like, from those notes, I was like, yeah, that's a quality that I haven't been giving myself. I haven't been noticing about myself. And I was so grateful that everyone else noticed it and said it, because you're right. I wasn't getting it.
It's amazing.
So 2 people to write you the things they admire about you. I love it. I love it. Well, you know, I admire you very much.
You do.
I do. I admire your beautiful spirit, and I admire your positivity, and I admire your fabulous osseousness. And I think you are a joy to the planet. And I want, if people want to play with you some more or learn some more from you, is there somewhere they can do that?
Oh gosh, there's a few places. Well, one you actually mentioned. So if anyone is really resonating with this and they're in business and they are on Facebook, please join our group. It's called the Impactful Entrepreneur. So that's one.
It's a great Facebook group. I love it. I'm so enjoying it so much. Thank you for creating it.
Yeah, so we're building community because it's really about all the do-gooders in the world who are creating what's next. And then, of course, my business site is unforgettablebrands.com. So I can be on there. You can always email me at jw@unforgettablebrands.com. And then, of course, I'm starting a new project, which I had mentioned to you. So that's on the grow. I'll keep it under wraps for now.
I love it. So we will have to catch up with you in a few months to see where that's headed.
Yes, please.
Well, everyone, I will make a list of where you can reach Judy and get connected with her. Please reach out to the Impactful Entrepreneur on Facebook. It really is a great group. She is a beautiful, beautiful, amazing spirit. We're blessed to hear your advice today. Thank you for sharing with us. And we send you the most love wishes. Thank you, my darling. Have a fabulous, fabulous day.
Love ya.